Assalamualaikum, my name is Nurul Fatihina binti Abdul and I will explain on pivot tables, pivot charts, filters and slices as well as in index and match functions in the payslip. Firstly, in pivot tables and charts. Pivot table helps us to summarize and analyze the large quantities data in much simpler form from the database. In order to create these pivot tables, we selected the data from employees' payroll starting from B2 until L71. From this, we can use the slices here to make us more easier to look at a certain data at the time needed. After selecting the data, we went to the Insert tab and click on Pivot Table command. From here, we choose to place it on a new worksheet, and this is how it turns out. The data in the rows, values, columns, and filters can be changed according to our preferences and priorities at a time, as now we put department in the rows and net salary in the values field as we wanted to know the sum of net salary by the department. But what if we wanted to know the sum of basic salary earned by each department? Then we just remove the net salary and drag the basic salary into the values field. Down below is another pivot table that we created as we wanted to know the sum of basic salary by employees positioned. We used the same steps as we did in the first pivot table, and this is how it turns out. Next, we move to the pivot charts. Pivot charts show the data in the pivot table in form of the charts. So in order to create these pivot charts, we click on any cell in pivot tables, then went to the Insert tab again and click on Pivot Chart command. From here, a dialog box will pop up and show several charts to be choose from. In our project, we chose 3D clustered column. So this is our pivot charts. So from this, any changes that we did to the pivot tables will affect the pivot charts as well. To illustrate the statement, let's assume that we wanted to know the sum of gross salary by department. Then we remove the basic salary and drag the gross salary into the values field. So this is how the pivot chart turns out and the pivot table changes as well. To make it more interesting, we can add as many data as we want at the same time. For example, let's say we wanted to view the net salary and the gross salary both at the same time. Then we just drag the net salary into the values field and the charts will show two bars at the same time. Blue representing the gross salary and red representing the net salary. On top of that, there are some filters that we can use to look at a particular data. For instance, if we wanted to know how many departments that have net salary less than 50,000 ringgit, then we can just go to the row labels and click at the button and it shows two filters that can be used. So now we use the value filters and click on less than. So all we need to do is just type 50,000 and click OK. So it shows that paramedical department is the one who have the sum of net salary under 50,000 ringgit. Not to mention all the amount is put under the currency value as it to make us easier to notice and recognize. To cut down the hassle, we can just drag the information that we want from here to the filters field. For example, we wanted to know the net salary of the chief of surgery in the surgical department, then we just need to drag the employee's position to the filters field. And this is where the filters came out and it shows all positions. Then if we wanted to know the chief of surgery net salary, then we must untick all and just tick the chief of surgery instead. So here it shows the net salary earned by the chief of surgery in the surgical department. Not just that, the slices here are to make the filtering process to be more faster and reachable. To begin with, we went to Analyze tab and click on Insert Slicer command. So now we click on Employee's position as we did manually before. So this is how it turns out. We now can click on any position that we want without having to drag anymore. But what if you wanted to look at all positions except for 3 positions? Then all we have to do is hold the control button on the keyboard and click on the position that we will not want to see. And this is how it will be. But what if we wanted to look at more than one position at a time? Then we just need to place the cursor at the first position that we want to see and drag the cursor all the way down to the last position that we want. So the graph will change as well as the pivot tables. Therefore, that will be the end of everything needed to be said in these pivot tables and charts. Thank you.